Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, the former prince, has always denied any wrongdoing in his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Lord Mandelson hasn't spoken publicly about the allegations he faces, but it's been reported that he denies acting illegally or using his office as a cabinet minister for personal financial gain.
This is True Criminals.
Martin, I was all set to start today's briefing by asking you about Andrew, former Prince Andrew's arrest. But events have already been overtaken on the news, seeing Lord Mandelson being led out of his home by police looking rather stony-faced and facing questions over the Jeffrey Epstein case.
The Mandy and Andy show.
Mandy and Andy show, as you call it.
That has completely dominated the news agenda over the last, well, how many weeks? Certainly the last couple of weeks with a certain intensity. Yes. Lord Mandelson, who I think is still a Lord, although he's resigned from the House of Lords and probably isn't going to be a Lord for much longer, looking very stony-faced, being led out of his rather sumptuous home in North London. He was with the police for about 8 hours, so released in the early hours of the morning. He's been questioned initially on the allegation of misconduct in public office, which is basically a corruption offence. And this, of course, like the allegations against the former Prince Andrew, it all stems from the release of documents by the Department of Justice. And in Mandelson's case, he's alleged to have passed confidential, market-sensitive info in a couple of emails to his pal Jeffrey Epstein. And this was after Epstein's 2008 conviction for procuring a child for prostitution. Whether it makes any difference whether at that stage Epstein was already convicted, I'm not sure. But Mandelson was business secretary at the time under a Labour government. And, the problem for the police is that this is a very complicated allegation to assess. There are a number of things that it has to prove, and it's all about willful neglect of somebody performing their duties, willful misconduct, and was it so bad, if that's proved, was it so bad that it constituted an abuse of his position and the public trust in him? I mean, that's what they're looking at. But firstly, the police are relying, initially at least, on evidence that's been supplied by the Americans. So those 2 emails that have come in that tranche of material around the release of Epstein material. And are they genuine or are they fake? I mean, that really has to be established, because I don't think at this stage anybody can be certain. They've questioned him initially, so some of those allegations will have been put to him. We don't know whether he responded to them. He may have given them some answers. He may have decided not to answer questions, or he may have made some initial statement. So this is going to be a very long process. It's a complicated case. He's been released on bail, and it's possible, I suppose, that he could be arrested again, maybe more than once while this investigation continues. I don't think anybody's suggesting that it's going to be over in a matter of weeks or even months. And there's no guarantee, of course, that he'll be charged at the end of it. But the possibility is that he will be charged, go on trial, and for the offence of misconduct in public office, the maximum sentence is life imprisonment. But nobody would ever get that for this common law crime.
Let's talk about Andrew's arrest. We've been talking literally for years about Andrew and his friendship and relationship with Epstein. But his arrest came quite out of the blue. And I think the King was quite surprised too. Suddenly police were on his doorstep and they arrested him, didn't they, on his 66th birthday from his new home on the Sandringham estate.
Yeah, there can't have been anybody who wasn't surprised, gobsmacked at the news. I mean, I was on a train going off to do something else when the news alert hit me. And I guess, like a lot of people in our business, I wasn't expecting an arrest at that stage. But it's slightly different from the Mandelson case, because Mandelson was arrested after police had already searched his 2 homes. Andrew was arrested without any searches having taken place. The searches then, he was carted off to the police station for 11 hours and interrogated, and the searches of his house on the Sandringham estate and his former home in Windsor Park were both searched then. And you kind of get the feeling that maybe the police were concerned that he would destroy evidence. I mean, that's one way of perhaps explaining why there were no pre-searches, but it was crash bang, knock on his door at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then begin those searches.
And the King was very clear, wasn't he, in his public statement that day to say that he supports the police investigation.
Well, his brother, the King, threw him under a bus, didn't he? Saying that, we will support it and the law must take its course. So you can only imagine what the King feels about this process, but it sounds very much as though, he's not going to offer any excuses or even perhaps take part in any defence of his brother. You look at it from a wider perspective. The whole future of the monarchy may rest on the outcome of this investigation into Andrew, certainly in terms of public confidence and public support for the royal family. But again, like the Mandy case, this is an investigation into the former prince that's going to go on for a long time. And you can only imagine the discussions that he's having with his lawyers. I do have something in common with Andrew.
Go on.
I don't know if you're aware of this. Well, his solicitor is a guy called Gary Bloxham. And we have a connection. It's not just, my thing in common with Andrew is not just my regal air and sense of entitlement. We do share a connection through his lawyer. And it was a few years ago that Gary Bloxham was representing a friend of mine who went on trial in London for allegedly bribing a police officer. And he'd been caught by a surveillance squad handing £200 to a police officer in return for a document that he was about to sell to the media. You'd have thought caught bang to rights. Gary Bloxham asked me to give evidence for my pal in his defence, and against all the odds, he got off. He was acquitted. So my point is, although Andrew is in an awful lot of trouble, he does have a very good solicitor in his camp, and nobody should underestimate him. And I suppose my other thought about Andrew is, so much has happened to him. He's been stripped of so much, but he's not been found guilty of anything, has he? Well, lying to Emily Maitlis, perhaps. Emily
Maitlis has naturally been very vocal following the arrest of Andrew. Of course, she did the now infamous Newsnight interview when he was Prince Andrew. She was saying that other police forces are also investigating allegations against him. And whilst Thames Valley have moved first, she was suggesting, there could be other questioning on other aspects of this story.
Well, there are 9 police forces involved in, very broadly, the investigation around Andrew and his connections with Epstein. I mean, they're more to do with looking at Epstein rather than Andrew specifically. But you could argue that 9 police forces are involved in those broad terms about the investigation into the former prince. So yeah, Thames Valley are leading the charge. They're investigating that principal allegation of misconduct in public office. And again, it's all about emails and Andrew as a trade envoy between 2001 and 2011, passing on market-sensitive information to his pal Jeffrey Epstein, and as a public servant, as he was then, in an official role, should not have been doing that. The Met Police, I think, are also involved in supporting Thames Valley in that. But Norfolk Police are involved as well, principally, I think, because he's living in Norfolk now. They said that they were reviewing documents and they are supporting the Thames Valley police investigation. The Met Police are looking not at Andrew, but at the behaviour of his protection officers, and it's all about, what they saw, what they didn't see, what they perhaps may have turned a blind eye to. But of course, the Met have been asked to look at these things before around Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And in, I think, 2015, there were claims of Epstein trafficking women into the UK for sex. The Met Police looked at those allegations and decided to take no action and said it was much more a thing for the American authorities. But they looked at them again and came to the same conclusion, that it wasn't something for them to look at. But I think the Met's attitude now is that, if there is any new evidence, then they might be disposed to reopening their case.
Andrew was questioned for around 11 hours. I imagine if anybody's questioned for that length of time unexpectedly, it's quite an ordeal. And I think it was the Reuters photographer that captured a photograph that I think I saw on socials in the Louvre yesterday. The picture of Andrew slumped back, being driven away from the police station, not looking at his best. I mean, that photo, as well as many other photos that have come out over the last few months, no doubt will haunt him.
Yeah, I don't think any of us would look at our best after 11 hours in police custody, but he made it worse for himself in a way by trying to duck down in the back seat. And it just makes him look so shifty. I mean, that photograph, you're right, by the Reuters cameraman, is going to win awards. I'm sure it will. And of course, of the millions of pictures that picture desks and newspaper editors have at their disposal to use to illustrate any story about Andrew, that's the one that will continue to get used. You can only imagine how uncomfortable it must have been for him, after his life of privilege, to be suddenly arrested without warning.
And how uncomfortable it is for his brother, the King, for Prince William, to see that photograph all over the front pages and on the headlines. I mean, it must be deeply disturbing for many reasons for the royal family. Yeah,
I mean, Andrew's the first royal to have been arrested since Charles I.
And he was beheaded.
And that didn't end very well,
did it? Didn't end very well at all, did it?
No, I mean, nobody's going to suggest, although there might be some appetite in some quarters, for capital punishment for an errant royal.
But difficult times for the royal family as well. And I'm not taking it away from, other people that were involved in this story, but one would like to be a fly on the wall, I think, in some of the conversations that must be being had at places like Buckingham Palace and Windsor right now.
Well, we know from what the King said in his statement, the law must take its course, and we're ready to support the police. So there's no love lost there. And I think William was out in public.
He was at the BAFTAs
the other day,
wasn't he?
at the BAFTA Awards, and somebody asked him a question, and I can't remember what the question was, but he said he wasn't in a very calm place.
He wasn't in a calm place. Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
So I think it's pretty clear that the royal family are aghast at what's happening, and I think, more than anything, what they want to do is to let the public know that this is all about and only about Andrew. It doesn't reflect, or they don't want it to reflect, on the wider royal family. But of course, it will. And there are questions about, what the royal family knew about Andrew's behaviour. People are already questioning, the Queen, who famously treated him as her favourite and perhaps turned a blind eye to his behaviour. So that is bound to have a detrimental effect on public support for the royals. There was a survey the other day that this question of stripping Andrew from being an heir to the throne, I think there was something like 86% support for that move. That's a real indication of how the public are beginning to maybe not fall out of love with the royal family, but really starting to ask questions about, the secrecy that surrounds them, the deference that's paid to them. If you've been stripped of your title as a prince, it feels quite crazy that you're still eighth in line to the throne. So I'm sure it's only a matter of time before, I think it's the government, isn't it, that would have to move
to change that.
Yeah, with the support of the rest of the Commonwealth countries, but Australia and New Zealand have already told Keir Starmer that they are willing to support his removal. So it looks as though that's going to happen, but it won't happen until the end of the criminal justice process. And that could be 2 or 3 years away.
So our first briefing on Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, I suspect not our last.
I'm sure it won't be. I mean, it's a fascinating subject, isn't it? The Andy and the Mandy show will continue.
Welcome to our new Patreon followers. Thank you for joining. Just to remind listeners, if you want to hear the episodes ad-free, you can. Head over to patreon.com/True Criminals. Stay with us for 3 months at Patreon and we'll send you a free True Criminals mug. Your support means everything to us. If you're enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to leave us a review. It helps us grow, reach new listeners, and keep bringing you the stories you love. This episode is brought to you by Audio Bleach Global. Follow True Criminals on Instagram @true.criminals and on YouTube at youtube.com/@true-criminals. For exclusive content and ways to support the show, visit us at patreon.com/True Criminals. For partnership opportunities, please contact us at contact@audiobleachglobal.com.